The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you're listening to The Makers of Minnesota. And we are talking with cool people doing cool things in the state of Minnesota, entrepreneurs, inventors, product originators. If you ever have a story that you think we should know about or someone that you think we should talk to, please let us know. You can find us on Facebook at Makers of MN, also Instagram and Twitter. And we're always looking for great stories. And we repost a lot of the podcasts that we've done. We're coming up on our 100th episode here pretty soon. So if you ever have ideas, feel free to let us know. Also, one of the things I want you to be looking for in the coming weeks is, because we've done so many podcasts, we have people that we podcasted with, 18 months ago. And in the life cycle of a business, that's a really long time. Many things have changed. I'm going to start doing mini makers where I connect back to the original stories and recheck in with those people to see how their business has changed and what has transpired from the time that we originally talked. Those will be some interesting stories too, so start to look for that. Today, I am excited to be with Melina Lamer, and she is the founder of Superior Switchel. And Melina, you and I think first saw you at a Midwest Pantry event maybe a long time ago, and I had never heard of Switchel. Explain to the listener what Switchel is.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah.
So Switchel is an old drink from the 17th century. It's a colonial classic beverage, most commonly used like the original Gatorade. So it's full of electrolytes. It's really thirst quenching, rehydrating, and delicious. And it's just 4 simple ingredients: ginger, water, apple cider vinegar, and an unrefined sweetener like honey or maple syrup.
And did you drink this as a young person, or how did you even know about this?
So I didn't know. I discovered it in college. I was a college hockey player at St. Olaf, and during my hockey career, I was always looking for an alternative that was natural to Gatorade, Powerade.
Yeah, because I trained for a marathon, and they just load you up with the Gatorade. I was like, gross.
Yeah.
I was eating Fig Newtons, and the only problem with that is like trying to swallow when you have not an ounce of saliva.
That's valid, yeah. Yeah, and, that's just because those big guys can afford to dole out all that free product.
Free product, yeah.
So, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best choice for you. So, back in college, I was making it specifically for myself, just as a post-game refreshment or a post-practice refreshment. And then, it started to catch on, and people heard I was making this it didn't have the name Switchel at the time because I didn't even know it was called that. It was just more for my own health benefit with the ginger and the vinegar in there. I knew it was good for digestion and inflammation. So I knew that I wanted to get that in my diet, and a drink was just the easiest format. So it was kind of like making a big batch of tea. And then after doing more research about, how to make apple cider vinegar taste better, because it's kind of difficult for a lot of people
It's
to
really
get.
sour.
Yeah, it's kind of a face scruncher. So I came across the word Switchel and read up on it and determined essentially that's what I was making. And after college, just, didn't really know what to do. I did a year of, it was called the Food Corps. It was a year of service in Connecticut where I was implementing farm-to-school programs and teaching nutrition education to students in a lot of low-income neighborhoods.
That's cool, like the Peace Corps, but for food?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so it's just a year or two of your time, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I knew from that moment on that I definitely wanted to continue my environmental and my food background with creating some sort of product. So I went forward with making and continuing to make what I always was making in college, Switchel. And, started at the Linden Hills Farmers Market in 2015 and from then, I just kept adding farmers markets, and I had a few retailers come up to me right away, like Jerry's Foods, of course, the Linden Hills Co-op, Eastside Co-op, and they all wanted to carry the product. And I was actually quite surprised that a product I was making in a pretty, rough shape, bare bones. It was in a mason jar. I was hand filling it, doing it all myself.
Yep.
And I was quite, pleased and surprised and humbled that people actually wanted to purchase it. So that's how we started. And now we're in over 150 stores. So we've come a long way.
And you're in like a traditional soda bottle now,
Mm-hmm.
and you've updated your packaging.
Yep.
Tell me about going from the mason jar to, are you at a co-packer, I would assume?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, now we're in a co-packer.
And that's a big step for lots of companies. How long were you making it before you went to the co-packer?
So not including college, as like an actual company, started in 2015. We made it for 3 years. And when I say me, or when I say we, I mean me. It was just me. And my girlfriend was kind enough to help occasionally.
Sure.
So, I got her sweat equity. But, it started in that mason jar specifically because it kind of spoke to the historic roots of what Switchel is, being a 17th century colonial drink. It made sense to be in a mason jar. And then also hand filling all of the bottles. It kind of needed a wide mouth, right? So without wanting to invest in any bottling equipment, before really knowing if Switchel was going to be the next thing or catch on, I needed to hand fill. So then November of last year, 2017, I decided that we were outgrowing our space. I couldn't keep up with the retailers. I think at that point we might have had like 100 or 90 some retailers. And the farmers markets and the events have started to become very overwhelming. And at that time I was working kind of going between 3 jobs. I worked at Lifetime and then Whole Foods, and then I was a bartender, and just kind of make ends meet. And then...
Can I just stop for 1 second
Yeah.
there? I was going to ask you about that because you went right from college to your own business.
Yeah.
Along the way, I'm assuming you were doing other jobs to pay the bills, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And were your family like, come on, what are you doing? Like, you went to college. What was there pressure there?
Yeah, a lot. And I still really feel it. My mom's side of the family is, I would say every one of the cousins of mine all have their act together. They all graduated from the University of the University of Wisconsin. I'm from Madison. So graduated from college, got their master's in business or some sort of relevant degree, and then went and started working for some big corporation or a firm. And I was definitely and still am very much the black sheep, I would say. I am, probably the only one with tattoos and the only one with my nose pierced and had dreadlocks for a while. And so I was quite the hippie child, and I wanted to do something quite opposite, I would say, of many of my family members. I was never interested in being an entrepreneur. I was very anti, purchasing products, and I think everybody has too many things, and I was very, minimalist.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see any advantage in, turning a new leaf and going in that direction that everybody seems to go in. But at the same time, I knew that if I wanted to make an impact on the planet and the environment and people and really leave something for the next generation, I think I needed to create a company, because then you have a product to sell. You're not just out there kind of, proclaiming good things. You're actually making something that's benefiting the people, the planet, and then hopefully turning a profit. So.
And you can hire employees, and you can be a good steward, and kind of in the way, I have a podcast that just came out about Peace Coffee and kind of their transition from, you start out and you're kind of these hippie co-op bean collectors, and then you end up having this company that employs lots of people. And they're a B Corp, so can you still do good work and make money and do good things?
Yeah. And so, I think we want to emulate that as well. We want to be, I don't want to say we want to be, but we're trying to emulate, the Patagonia. And now Patagonia is even getting into food with their provisions line, and I think that's genius. I think food is the way to many people and the way to change. It's something that people need every single day. So I think it's the greatest way to make an impact, and hopefully not create too much waste in the process. So that's what I decided to do.
And so where we left you was you were working 3 jobs and deciding if you could go to the co-packer. And I'm assuming you're like bootstrapping this the whole time.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Every paycheck I made, I put right into the company. And so I would just save a little bit for my rent and my gas and the classic bills. But and then I, created a savings, especially from the bartending job. I would say I made bank at that, and then saved it all, and then would quit, and then just do Switchel full time for like a jaunt. And by that I mean like maybe like 6 or 8 months.
Yep.
And I would just really try to push it, get as much, the packing, the making the product myself was what was the most time consuming.
Yep.
So I would spend just countless hours doing that, up till 2 or 3 a.m. brewing, and then waking up and answering all the emails and trying to market myself and do the social media, which I am not a fan of at all. And then go back and brew again. So juggling the 3 jobs, I would try to save up the money, quit, use that money, splurge it all on Switchel, and then when I'd run out, I would go back to having a part-time job. And so at that point I became a mail carrier, and I was hoping that I'd have better benefits and all of that. But truth be told, startup mail carriers really work over 50 hours a week. It's ridiculous. I've never seen a harder working position. So
really,
that was nearly impossible to sustain that job and Switchel. But I thought it would be good when you're outside all day.
Yeah,
you're hanging out with dogs. You're talking with people. You get to listen to podcasts and really educate yourself. So I kind of used that opportunity as a way to like get my unofficial master's degree in business.
Sure.
And then listening to all these podcasts and trying to learn and soak up as much info as possible.
You're so smart.
Well,
I have never talked to anybody to this point that has articulated that struggle and done it in such a way that I totally hear you and admire the way you did that. It is when you're bootstrapping a business, you have a couple choices. You can either pay as you go or put it on credit cards.
Yep.
And if you're trying to pay your rent and do things along the way and live, sometimes the bootstrapping is just exactly the way you did it. And I loved how intentional you just talked about it. So you get to the co-packer. Was that just like a huge financial decision, or was it just like timing? I can't do this anymore. It's like it takes money to make money and I can't keep going.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely couldn't keep up. I was in a community kitchen and we didn't have enough shared dry storage space, let alone refrigerated space. And so I knew I needed to get a new location. And at that point, it was either, spend $1 million on building out a facility or essentially spend $1 million on getting a co-packer, redesigning it, making it more mainstream so that we could actually potentially go nationwide at some point. So I decided that because, I was making concentrated Switchel, it was non-sparkling, it was in a mason jar, it was bare bones, as I said. So how do I really know if this can go national? So I don't, it was a trial and error, and it felt like it's been my life. It was 3 years, and I thought, gee, this should make it by now. But, truth be told, trying it in, like a Whole Foods or a Fresh Time or really making that next jump would really be the tell-all. So I wanted to put my best foot forward, and therefore I knew I needed to change the packaging, make it a little bit lighter, a little less ounces per bottle, a little more affordable for people. And I just knew I physically could not do that by myself.
Yeah.
I had given everything I knew how to do, especially without any, culinary background or business background.
Sure.
So at that point, I knew it was time to call in the big dogs. So I found a company here through one of my mentors, actually in St. Paul, who it's BevSource.
Yeah.
And they've worked with a multitude of companies, anyone from Joya Soda to Crisp and Hard Cider to you name it. And they're really fantastic. And I think a lot of food companies are looking for something in the food world that's comparable, I haven't found something like that. But in the beverage world, that's fantastic. They can help you from start to finish with your product. So if you want to reformulate, they can help you. If you want to, you want to make sure your packaging and your COGS are low and at the best they can possibly be, or you want to find a new co-packer, they can help you. So
do they are they helping you through, do you pay them, or is it that they're getting a percentage of the product or the ownership or the distribution? How does that work?
A little bit of both. So you have an upfront cost or a fee, and it just kind of depends on your project and what kind of scale you're looking for. I believe the projects are 3-tiered, so you can pick, one of those 3 tiers or all 3. And then from there, after production, then they're going to get a percentage of each of your cases sold. So, if I get a PO in, a little percentage, it's like 2 cents a case. So it's pretty doable right now. And for everything that they do, I mean, they oversee our production. So I go to the co-packer with them, and they have, all the specs that we need to hit, our bricks, our pH, everything. And they're really helping kind of be a professional sidekick to me to ensure that quality is on par.
This is such a cool, I mean, I guess, is it a distributor? Is that what their title is, or how do they market themselves?
It's kind of like it's like an affordable outsourced operations team or a production management team.
It's so cool. I wish there was something like that for the food side, and I can totally see why that appeals to somebody like you who is bootstrapping it, who's alone, who doesn't. I mean, you've got mentors, but you don't have other people working in this business with you.
Right. And it took 3 years just to figure out how to make my subpar version, right? Like my mason jar version. It took me that long to perfect that. I knew I couldn't spend another 3 years, ditzing around with this. I really needed to get it out and get it going and move along. So,
and your product is weird in that nobody knows what it is. They don't know how to use it. So there's so much in the marketing of it or the story of it. Like when I see you at a farmer's market or I see you at an event, like you really have to explain to me what it is, why I want it. You have different flavors now. Is that, that's probably part of what makes it unique and compelling to you, but it's also got to be super hard.
Oh, it's awful. It's super stressful. I wish I could say I don't wish I could say, but I wish I could say it was another Me Too product.
Sure.
Or something that, like, I don't want to say anyone has it easy, but to come out and, if your granola, people know what the heck granola
That's right.
is.
And
right?
then it's just a matter of evaluating taste, texture, price, whatever.
Yep. And if you can nail all those things, boom, you win. But for me and, a lot of other similar products like shrubs, vinegar-based drinks, that's essentially what we are. That's very confusing to people, especially since shrub also means like a bush or something like that. So, the word is weird. It's not in anyone's vocabulary. It's kind of like kombucha in that regard. When it came out, it was super hippie and niche and people didn't know what it was, or they still can't pronounce it or spell it. And, now they've gone, I would dare say, mainstream. You can find them in convenience stores.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we want to go that mainstream, at least not right now, but we definitely want to start educating people more. And so that process is so very time consuming. So we spend a lot of time in marketing our social media pages, and then, of course, all of the events that we do. And we also try to just do random pop-ups in businesses, or if there's, a wedding coming up and a friend of a friend really likes vinegar-based drinks, everybody kind of just shares that word and passes that along to us and invites us to come along. And we just do little pitches here and there for events.
Can I just ask some questions that'll help? I'm a food person and I'm having trouble with Switchel.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask some questions that maybe people are thinking of.
Yeah.
So kombucha is not my favorite, but you're basically supposed to drink like a quarter cup of it, right? And then it helps your gut.
Yeah.
Then there is these kombuchas that now like they're in the convenience store, like a big drink. Do I drink all of that? And then does that do the same thing as the old quarter cup did? It's just diluted. And Switchel, how is it different than kombucha? Is it because it's not fermented?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question, because I would say nowadays kombucha is more of an RTD or a ready to drink.
Yep.
Right. So it's normally like anywhere from a 12 to a 16 ounce bottle. And they're normally 2 servings per bottle, but people just drink a whole bottle, right? So the difference is kombucha is going to obviously be fermented, as you said, and the ingredients are totally different. It's fermented tea, and then there is cane sugar or a refined sugar in that process, and that is fermented, and then its byproduct is obviously that fizzy drink that they call kombucha, but it's also a little bit, and by a little bit I mean the alcohol content of a banana, so there is some alcohol content to it. And then caffeine a little bit comes through from the tea. So Switchel, on the other hand, is not fermented, so we get around that caffeine content, we get around that alcohol issue that's, many kombucha companies are being sued over right now. And we also can be a shelf-stable product, which is awesome. And that's partially due to that apple cider vinegar and a really low pH. It's an awesome ingredient to have in a drink. And also, without that fermentation, you're going to have less of a funky flavor profile. So I would say it's much more palatable and more approachable than a kombucha. So if you're scared of kombucha, which I actually am.
I kind of am too.
Yeah, to me, I don't really like to see many things swirling around in my drinks.
Yeah,
right?
like it's gray, it's
even
cloudy,
if it's
there's stuff floating in there.
Yeah, it's not.
I just
my
feel
jam.
like it's going to hit my gut and just make it feel churny.
Right.
Is the way I.
Yeah.
But I didn't. So when we were at a festival together, and I was really I'd walked 16 miles that day, and it was super hot. And I was feeling really low energy when I just happened to be standing next to you, and you looked at me and you're like, "Here, do you want some Switchel?" I was like, yeah, sure." I was like, "How much?" She's like, "Here, just take a sip." And it felt like, it felt like an electrolyte situation where when you're running a marathon, you stop, you rehydrate. And a half hour later, I was like, "Oh, I feel so much better than I did."
Yeah.
And the only thing different was your product.
Good to hear. Yeah. I mean, I try to promote that, but it's funny how I will get, I have a Google number that I put on the product. So it's not really my cell phone, but it goes to my cell phone.
Yep.
And I get a lot of people of the older generation who are asking or have just some great news to share with me about the product. And every time it surprises me, and I'll answer, and they'll be like, "Hey, is this the owner of Superior Switchel?" And I'll say, "Yeah." They go, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that, I was feeling really down, and I was kind of had a cold coming on, and I just took a sip of your product, and I felt like $1,000,000." And I'm like, "Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing." And sometimes you don't get a great call, but a lot of time we do, and it's always a little surprising, but it's nice that, people are finding it and finding the benefit, even if we can't, necessarily put all of the health benefits on the bottle or the packaging. A lot of
be
people
pretty careful about all that.
Yeah.
Your bottle, do I drink, if I'm going to be a Switchel drinker, do I drink the entire bottle in one sitting?
Most do. But I will agree, and I will say that vinegar is a tough ingredient, as is ginger. So they're both pretty potent, and tart and tangy. But yeah, ideally you shake it up just so that ginger is not settled at the bottom of your bottle. Shake it up real good. It'll disperse. Let it sit for 10 seconds. It's a little bit carbonated, so you don't want it to explode. And then crack it open and pour it over ice. And drink the whole bottle, or mix, 6 ounces of it in a cocktail.
Do people drink it with cocktails?
Yeah.
Like gin and vodka? Because that would have never occurred to me, because I see it as a health drink.
Yeah.
But now that you're saying it, and then you brought shrubs into the equation, which I love in drinks.
Yeah.
This could be my new mixer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all of our flavors blend really well with vodka, tequila, bourbon, or whiskey. And in particular, I like a gin and tonic with the lavender lemon is delicious. And then a Moscow Mule or a hot toddy with the honey cinnamon, and then a whiskey ginger with the orange. So yeah, quite versatile. And you can also drink hot like a tea. Just pour it in a kettle or in a mug and throw it in the microwave for a minute. That honey cinnamon especially is very good if you've got a winter cold or something like that. And
this is so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to have to educate the world about Switchels. And do you do your own social media, and how do you possibly take that on?
Yeah, so I started off doing all of my social media, and now my trusty sidekick, my girlfriend, has offered to do that as as a nice gesture. So she does our Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, website, you name it. So yeah, our website is just superiorswitchel.com. Instagram is superiorswitchel, and our Twitter is switchelmn. So we are utilizing all platforms, and I'm also, again, doing a lot of events and trying to market that way. I think it's best in person when people get to try it for a little free sample, and then I can help promote its benefits and whatnot. And then also we try to do a lot of events where we can throw it into a cocktail or a mocktail. So if you've got any parties or things like that, or distilleries. So those are great marketing exposure. But we also partner with a local PR firm, Field Guide, and Mary is the owner of that, and she's fantastic. She has been helping to promote our product with a lot of local companies.
Do you sample at like liquor stores too? Like I know you're at Surdix.
Yep. So we used to be in more, and when we changed our packaging, we ended up losing a couple because I don't know, they were confused or whatnot. Yep. So yes, we're trying to add more liquor stores and more on-premise sites. We are right now in one brewery, Omni Brewing in Maple Grove, and they fly through the Switchel. It's one of their only non-alc products.
I bet it would taste good mixed with beer, actually.
It is, yeah. The orange maple I prefer with a beer, and you can do we had one brewery, it was called She Brewing in St. Paul, and they had a tart cherry sour kind of ale, and they mixed it with our honey cinnamon, and it was amazing.
Like a beer cocktail,
yeah. Yep. So I know they're beer enthusiasts, don't want to adulter their beer, but there are a lot of people out there, especially in craft breweries, looking for good craft NA drinks.
Yeah, and just different things. There isn't a lot of good non-alcoholic type options.
Yeah.
So here you are. You're now at the co-packer. The business is evolving. What do you spend your day doing? Are you just, besides, I have a feeling you spend a lot of the day sampling and doing events, but are you also doing sales?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah. So I would say I spend, unfortunately, the majority of my time sitting behind a computer screen, answering emails, sending emails, pitching the product. We've contacted just about every company you can think of, from ice cream to liquor stores to typical standard grocery stores. So, I'm spending a lot of time answering emails, less time doing what I enjoy, which is like research and development and new flavor ideas, testing those out. I'm still, finding time to fit that in, but I still also have to sell, what we've produced and make sure that it's a viable product and something that's going to really catch on before I can keep expanding.
How do you know when it's time to bring a salesperson on or a distributor?
Yeah, I definitely think that a distributor, that's pretty easy, right? Like if you can't keep fulfilling demand yourself in your one vehicle, and if you don't want to do DSD or direct, bring on a fleet of vehicles, then it's time to bring on a distributor for sure. And a lot of retailers, they like working direct, but most, I would say, prefer not to.
Yep.
So as you're probably aware, I think it's to your advantage to get in sooner. More doors will open for you. But at the same regard, if you, let's say you jump at your first distributor that comes to you, or it's the easiest distributor, quote unquote, to get into, well, then a bigger distributor comes along and finds them to be competitive, right? And they don't want to bring you in because they're kind of taking from the same pie that they would be. So it's difficult. You don't want to jump at the first one. I think you want to look at all of the distributors and analyze what territories they cover, and then decide, in a few years, if I'm bigger than this, will I need a distributor that right now is competitive with a smaller distributor, and then make that decision about which is more valuable to you. So I kind of did that. I distributed for as long as I could, and it was like 2 years. And then eventually I was like, okay, I can't keep up with emails, demos, events, and distributing. So I hurried up and I got in with local market distributing out of Burnsville, and then Co-op Partners Warehouse, which is slightly, same territory, but I would say market distributing has really helped us enter more of the bigger supermarkets like Coburn's and Cashwise and Hy-Vee, things like that. And CPW has been fantastic working with independents and local co-ops and cafes like Spy House Coffee.
Yeah. Because that's a whole, like, your product, it's so versatile. Like, you could be in liquor stores, you could be in grocery stores, you could be in Lifetime Fitness cafes because there's the health benefit. You could be in food service. Like, in some ways, like I talked to Johnny Pops, and because their product has a really high healthy profile and kids like popsicles, like food service and schools have been a big driver for them.
Yeah, food service is actually what I would recommend everybody hands down immediately. Like, that is what I wish I could have just, dove right into. But with a product like Switchel, you kind of need to get it on the shelves of the retailers for people to see and read and learn about before you can just throw it into food service and hope people will buy it. It's not like coffee where people,
they know what coffee is. Yeah.
It's like an automatic sale. So I thought going retail first might kind of give us a little bit of an edge in developing the background of the product and the history and the benefits. And then I would love to at some point get into food service, and definitely gyms. Lifetime has been a target. They're a little bit more of an expensive slotting fee to get into. So that's been limiting.
And slotting fees, just for the listener, is what, so that they know?
Yeah, so a lot of supermarkets you'll find will have a slotting fee, and I guess apparently gyms as well. So Lifetime, the slotting fee is quite expensive, and it's just a fee that, I mean, it's over $10,000. So it's a fee that you have to pay up front in order for them to bring your product in.
Mm-hmm.
And supermarkets and co-ops and things like that usually don't have a slotting fee, but they might have a free fill. So that is totally doable and preferred. Just offer a free case of each of your SKUs. So that's more affordable for sure. But slotting fees, if it's a good account, if they can guarantee a lot of sales of your product, it's worth that fee up front. It's just something to keep in mind that if your product doesn't move, they can just kick you out and you don't get that slotting fee back.
I wish they had, because in that instance, I do think you would be a great fit there. And I know that people have slotting fees and that's how they manage their business. But I wish there were slotting fees that were for undiscovered products, or that they had a different tier for people like you.
Right.
Because I think once that product got on those shelves, it would be pretty beneficial.
Yep.
So we have to work on that. We have to change the grocery and change the system.
Yep.
When you think about the next 6 months, what are the biggest challenges for you coming up? You've done a really great job and a big service here today, explaining to a lot of people out there that have products some of the challenges and the steps along the way and the things you're thinking about. What are the next 6 months like?
Well, unfortunately for me, it feels like I almost have to start over again.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, we went into glass bottles from our mason jar. And again, you said it was like a classic soda bottle or a beer bottle. We went into that because upfront costs were lower than moving into an aluminum can, right? So with cans, you have to buy in bulk, like truckloads. And that upfront cost is very hindering for your cash flow. So we automatically said, all right, although glass is more expensive in the long run, upfront it's more affordable. So we're going to move into glass, and that can continue to keep that sort of what's more of like a upscale vibe for
craft,
the product.
Yeah,
like a craft vibe. And we really, we're in a lot of specialty cafes and specialty shops. So we wanted that product to look like it was worthwhile and worth that $3.99 that you're spending. So now we're finding that our biggest struggle is, although it's a health beverage and a functional beverage, and therefore it should be by the kombuchas and the fresh pressed juices and the coconut waters of the world, it's shelf stable. So when it's all said and done, if you're a shelf stable product coming in on a shelf stable truck, you get put on the dry shelf.
Right.
So a $3.99 drink on a dry shelf next to $2.99 and under it's a hard sell.
Yep.
And people are, automatically more gravitating towards the cooler space.
So you should be by the naked juices and the refrigerated produce part.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we, my sales team and myself, we're really struggling to argue for that space because that's a coveted space.
Yeah.
And so if we're not getting that space, we're going to have to figure out a way to drop our price. And right now, margins are slim enough. So in order for me to actually make any income, I think we'll have to change our packaging eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
to go to aluminum.
Yeah, probably like a 12-ounce sleek can. So it'll still be kind of fancy. It'll look nice, and honestly, it will fit into my mission more. It'll be more sustainable. It'll also be lighter, so shipping costs will be less, and ultimately, it'll be at a lower price to the consumer, which is great. Hopefully, we'll sell more, and it'll be versatile, so they can actually take it hiking and take it into the places that we see Switchel being, like on a boat, for example.
What about the cool thing about aluminum cans these days is they have different sizes and they have some different finishes on the cans with sort of the matte. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of Black Eye Roasting Company does kind of a matte can that's a little bit different. Has anyone in your category explored like the box, like a Bandit wine or?
What's another example?
So like they're almost like little
or?
juice boxes.
Oh, like a yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've thought about doing that. And I don't think anyone else in the category, nobody in the category is doing that for sure.
But we're probably in the same place that you're at now, which is that no one's going to know what to do with this.
Exactly. Yep. And it's actually pretty expensive and we've thought about other pouches, like how baby food's coming in.
Yeah, or
cool
like
pouches.
A Capri Sun juice pouch thing.
And a lot of them are just not sustainable.
Yeah.
They just don't speak to our mission. They're not recyclable. They end up in the landfill.
Yep.
So I think ultimately we'll have to stick with glass or aluminum. Ideally both, but I think that's just not in the budget right now.
Have you seen the cans that they use for Coppola wines? They have a product called Sophia that is a sparkling rosé wine, and it's in a small can. Uh-huh. And they have it at Certic, so when you're there. Okay. And then they have another product that they also produce that is a larger, slimmer can that is for their wine products. They have like a Sauvignon Blanc, they have a rosé, they have a red.
Yeah.
And they just feel higher class.
Yeah.
Something about their packaging, and maybe it isn't the packaging at all. Maybe it's just the logos and everything, but just maybe next time you're in a liquor store, pick those up.
Yeah, I will.
Because it just reminds me of something that I could see your product in.
Yeah, and it might actually be what we're looking at right now. I don't know if it's a sleek, is it like a narrow can?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Joya has a can that's kind of similar.
It might be along those lines, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty trendy right now.
The Sophia one's smaller.
Okay.
It's like 2/3 of the size.
Okay.
So it's bigger than like remember the old grapefruit juice with the like metallic pull-off tab thing? Yep. It's a little bigger than that. I don't know. It makes me think of you.
Yeah.
Remember? So, well, it's been really fun to talk to you. Again, you've really laid out a lot of the challenges of a beverage entrepreneur for sure. I love the way you've thought about it. Are you still working another job to pay the bills and to bootstrap, or are you able to make it?
Yeah, this is the first year I am just doing Switchel full time. So it's been pretty phenomenal to dedicate all of my time to it.
And you're in your 4th year?
Yeah. Yep. We're going here into our 4th.
You know what they say about 5?
If you make it past 5, you're golden, or what?
And that you're unemployable anywhere else.
Oh,
so you may as well just keep doing research and development and growing your own line.
Yep, that's ideal.
Thank you for spending time with me today.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
At Farmers Insurance, we know the sound of a perfect hot air balloon landing. And a less than perfect one. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. An F-16 pilot having hydraulic problems with his aircraft managed to parachute to safety as the plane smashed into a warehouse east of Los Angeles. Fire Captain Fernando Herrera.
That pilot landed in the March Air Force Base area. in the base itself.
Amazingly, there were no serious injuries after the plane hit the building. Alabama executed a man last night for his role in killing 4 people after an argument over a pickup truck. Tennessee executed a man who killed his wife. Reporters couldn't see the execution, but AP correspondent Travis Lawler says,
"We could hear sounds, including singing, that Mr. Johnson's attorney says was him singing a hymn."
Answering a reporter's question, President Trump said he hopes the U.S. is not on a path to war with Iran. Mr. Trump has dismissed suggestions that any of his advisors are trying to push him into a conflict. I'm Rita Foley.